So hello again. My name is Razan El Helou. I am currently a student, a master's student at the University of Cambridge. I study education and knowledge, power, and politics in education. And today we have with us Katie, who works for Lively Minds. I'm sorry. And thank you so much for meeting with us, Katie. And can you tell us a little bit about you, what you do, and about Lively Minds as well?
Razan, thank you. So as you said, I work for Lively Minds, and I'm the head of monitoring and evaluation there. I joined Lively Minds in October 2021, and prior to that, I was working with CAMFED International, who are based in Cambridge but work all across sub-Saharan Africa. I was there for 5 years. I joined CAMFED just after my master's. I did a master's of research in international development. Prior to that, I did it's kind of a graduate placement after my undergrad degree, which was in politics. So that's in a nutshell.
That's wonderful. It's honestly so nice to meet you. And can you tell us a little bit about Lively Minds and what they do and the team and so on?
Sure, yeah. So Lively Minds, we work in Ghana and in Uganda, and our focus really is on improving ECD, which is early childhood development. And we work to improve ECD provision both in schools, so through like kindergartens, and in the home as well, because although there's a lot you can do at kindergarten, actually children of that age spend most of their time at home. So that's where most of the change needs to happen.
It's actually very interesting for me personally, which is why I was so excited for this meeting, because my bachelor's was in early childhood. And I noticed that you guys talk a lot about, you call them play schemes. And a lot of the learning that happens through Lively Minds and their mission has a lot to do with empowering people to use their own resources. And that's why it's so exciting for me. However, I would like you, if you may, tell us a bit more about the parenting schemes and the play schemes and what goes on and what the mission, the goals are.
Sure. So Lively Minds, our basic model is that we work through government partners usually. So we use a trainer approach whereby Lively Minds staff will train the government's kind of people employed in their education department, who are then able to go out into communities and to train kindergarten teachers. So I'm talking mostly using our Ghana program as an example. So the government's education staff can then go out to train kindergarten teachers in kind of 3 key things. So they're then able to train them in delivering the Training of Mothers program that we have, which is the program that the mothers undertake before helping to deliver the play schemes. The teachers are trained to deliver the parenting workshops, which follow on from the Training of Mothers. And they're also trained in how to kind of like run and supervise the play schemes themselves. So that's it's coming from the Lively Minds staff to the government staff to the teachers.
I was really curious about the parenting workshop for one aspect, because I do understand that Lively Minds, what they do is that instead of going physically and bringing people and exporting people from here, they instead use the parents and the people who are already in the culture, which I think is brilliant, because then you are empowering people to get themselves, to educate themselves, to get to rise as a community, instead of just interfering and giving people, resources that are non-sustainable. So I was very, very curious about the parenting workshop, especially like who trains those parents, and then what happens to these parents become themselves trainers, or have you even taught any, did you see any resistance perhaps, where parents were like, no, we don't want to do this, what's the point of this? Or were they actually very eager and excited to do that?
Yeah, sure. So the parenting workshop is probably important to understand that we have the Training of Mothers, which is 8 sessions delivered over 3 weeks, I think, and that's those I say are the kind of like the foundation that the mothers have to complete before the play scheme launches. and that covers things like how to make and play the games, instruction to the games, about ECD, why it's important, how to like handle groups of children in a good way, that kind of thing. So they go through those eight sessions first, and then there's a graduation ceremony, and they can then move on to the parenting workshops, which are held monthly for the mothers who are volunteering at the play scheme. And the parenting workshops cover all sorts of there's lots of different modules. They cover lots of different elements, and I was looking back at like the actual the session names today, and it covers things like obviously there's a focus on ECD and why it's important. There's lots of health-based modules, so good nutrition, malaria prevention, personal hygiene, hand washing. They cover things that are more related to like perhaps the mother's well-being, so things like self-esteem, managing finances, child protection, like peer support, that kind of thing. And then also looking more at kind of almost the more technical side of ECD. So we encourage mothers to use a technique called discovery-based teaching, rather than like teaching kids, just telling them or expecting them to learn by rote. So that we go through that in the parenting workshops, and also things about like encouraging play at home, because as I say, that's where children spend most of their time. You asked about kind of community like uptake and resistance, that kind of thing. The way that we work is that if a community, we start the training of mothers program with a community meeting, and we have a minimum number of mothers that we say a community has to have for the play scheme to go ahead, which is 30 up to 40. And if a community, unless it's a particularly small community, if a community doesn't have that many mothers who can commit, then we think, well, yes, the level of commitment isn't right. This isn't going to work. We're not going to force it. It's up to the community to decide if it's something they want to spend their time on. And that holds true as well for throughout the training of mothers and the play schemes. If mother attendance drops too low, then the play scheme doesn't become viable anymore.
Oh, that's actually very, very interesting to know, because I don't know, I think that might have so many positives and a little bit of negatives, because sometimes you worry about communities that face that resistance, or for instance, in a community where not 30 or 40 mothers are willing, but 20 mothers are willing, and then they might lose that opportunity, which is very sad. But at the same time, that commitment, I believe, as you said, is very necessary for these things to go on, because these are life skills. They're not just teaching a specific curriculum that is again exported from the outside, and you're like, here is math, here is English, learn these and you're good. Now you're actually teaching the life skills, as you said, as hygiene and so on. And it's so interesting that you focus a lot on empowering mothers to become capable of supporting their own families. However, everything, of course, as you said, is volunteer based. Out of curiosity, do you guys also recruit men, or is it just specifically for like mothers?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm aware from like particularly my own studies, there's a lot of debate around, are we empowering women, or are we giving them extra work to do this kind of thing? And we do. So we work with mothers because in reality, like from our own research and from the wider literature, they are the caregivers. That's the reality. So it makes sense for them to be the ones that we're working with, really. Fathers are quite often away, they might be earning money, and we view them, rather than sort of saying you should be doing this and this is an extra thing you should be doing, they are, like, we kind of often describe it as being like the sleeping giant in revolutionizing ECD. So that's the kind of the reason mainly for our focus on mothers. The other thing is that often in reality, and I know that it's not just our program but other programs I've worked on, quite often when you include fathers as well, so our mothers aren't paid, this is all voluntary. There's quite often like an increase in demand for payment, or like lower engagement if there's no payment, that kind of thing. We absolutely do have parenting workshops that are targeted at men, and somewhere men and women come together and that kind of thing. So it's not that they're excluded, but it is that the focus is on mothers. So yeah.
No, absolutely. As you say, mothers are honestly very crucial in any part, especially because you're targeting early childhood education. You're not really targeting adult. Yeah. So also, if you don't mind, I really want to talk about the resources that you guys use, because as you said, first, with respect to the people, they're all volunteers, but with respect to the resources themselves, you do mention in the website that they are all sustainable resources and they're all locally found, and you, in a way, you teach them how to use stuff that they already have, rather again than exporting stuff and being like, this is the computer, here you go, use it.
Yeah, or here's some like games that have been donated. Yeah, that kind of thing. Yeah, absolutely. So the games that we have 5 categories of games basically, and there are different games within those categories. There's basic versions and more stretching versions, and these have all been developed initially with Lively Mind staff, like alongside the communities that we work with, to make sure that they make sense and, you know, all that kind of thing. But each of the games has, like, it targets kind of specific childhood development areas. So for example, well, maybe I can just kind of walk you through them. The categories for the games are matching, numbers and counting, senses and sizes, building, and then books and storytelling. So within the matching category, we have, we might give them a set of buttons, and you've got 2 buttons that are the same color within the set, and you take half the buttons and put them in a row and say, can you find me the partner for this, for each button, for example. So super simple, but that is, it's helping their development. I did note down exactly which one that works with. But yeah, so the button matching that I just described, for example, it develops their like visual comprehension, so they understand, they're thinking and understanding what they're looking at, sensory motor skills, because, you know, buttons are quite fiddly, so being able to pick those up and put those down, comprehension of instructions, so making sure they understand getting used to instructions and understanding what they're being asked. And because we've got 5 children on a game at a time, they have to learn to take turns, not just shove each other out the way. So yeah, that's I think that's a good example of, you know, it's a really simple game, but it's not chosen at random in any way. It's to develop certain areas of the child, work on certain areas of child development. And a lot of the games, they are very simple like that. So for example, we might do picture matching, and it will just be drawn on little bits of card, so that, you know, it's kind of, in the UK we might go and buy a set of like picture playing cards, but you can do something very similar with just cardboard, really. So each school at the start, when they join the play scheme, they're given a set of the games, and we go through in the training, like, you know, you're provided with one set at the start, but if any of the games are lost, damaged, broken, like, it's your responsibility to repair these. We go through like how they can repair them, they can replace them, that kind of thing. And then as part of our monitoring, we do check up that the games are still, like, they're all there and they're all in good condition and that kind of thing.
I'm actually a little bit curious about that in specific, in the sense that have you ever received, for instance, like the parents were like, yeah, these are amazing games, but how about this game? Or like, have you ever received suggestions from parents that were like so into the curriculum that they started creating their own material and they started using their own resources and suggesting stuff for you? Or has it so far been just receiving?
I think so. It's a really good question, and I think, as I've not actually been at one of these sessions yet, I'm possibly not best place to answer it, but it is something that we're looking into. So we've got a number of like bits of external research being commissioned at the moment, and something that we're looking into is, as a result of the training that the mothers get, what do they then go home and do with their children? So do they like replicate what we do? Do they adapt it? Do they do something different? Which I think will be really, really interesting to see what comes up.
Absolutely. And one more thing about also the parents, sorry for going back there, but I do feel like you're also creating a stronger sense of community, because I would believe that these 30 or 40 mothers who are coming together every single month or for the 8 sessions, whichever it is, there's kind of connecting on a personal level as well, which would also allow them later on, if they want to seek advice from one another or from the seniors in the group or so on. And I really appreciate that. It was more of a comment than a question. um, and another question we had is that you currently work in Uganda and in Ghana, if I'm not mistaken. Do you have, or do you know if there are any plans in expanding these programs to reach other spaces in Africa or anything in the global south or even the global north? Yeah.
Yeah, sure. So your question about kind of mothers and community building, that kind of thing, is a really good one. I think this is more anecdotal, but I think when we were in the very early stages of developing the program, there was a bit of an assumption on, you know, like our side that you go into these rural communities and you think there's very sort of like tight knit, close knit community and everyone is very friendly. And actually we found out that that's not always the case, and there can often be a lot of stigma. I mean, the one that jumps to mind immediately is like disability, for example. There can be a lot of stigma between households. So quite a lot of the parenting workshop does cover things, I say, like self-esteem, kind of peer networking, peer support, trying to build those bonds, which is always a good thing. And yeah, some of the research we've had done externally in the past does indicate that mothers, like, as well as the impact for the children, they themselves experience like increased well-being as a result of being part of the program. So yeah, that's definitely an important part of it. And you asked as well about where we work at the moment and if we've got any plans for expansion. So I think one thing that I found is like quite different about Lively Minds compared to a lot of NGOs is that we are like, we're not kind of the direct implementing partners all the time. So really the way that we work is to be invited into a country, and then we work with the government so that they are able to kind of deliver this train the trainers model with the Lively Minds team to provide technical support. So it's our focus is very much on being scalable and working at scale, because in sort of the field of ECD there are lots of really good solutions to this problem, but not a lot of them are that scalable. They're not going to work at scale. So that's a big thing for us. If we do something, we think, well, can we do it across 4,000 schools, you know, without incurring, you know, massive kind of admin and costs and that kind of thing. So yeah, I think that's probably an important element of how our program works. And at the moment so in Ghana, for example, we've got an agreement to scale to every rural community in northern Ghana. So that's going to be quite, you know, it's a huge area. That's going to be quite a big project. And in Uganda, we're at a slightly earlier stage where we're expanding through one entire district, and then it's more, we're in a slightly earlier sort of like test and transition phase. Whereas in Ghana, we know much more about like how the program works, how the system works, and where we're going. But Uganda, we are at like a little bit more of an early stage. And certainly, I think if, you know, our hope would be that other governments would see the success that we've had in Ghana, in particular, like want Lively Minds to come in and to work with them. But that's kind of more how that one would go, I think.
Probably a question I should have asked earlier. How long has the programs been running? How long has Lively Minds been established? Because I do know it started off as a smaller project and it just started expanding with new partners. So if you can tell us a little bit about that, that'll be interesting as well.
Yeah, sure. As you say, it did start off as a very small project, and it's grown quite sort of steadily over the years. I think, I mean, as I say, I'm very new relatively to Lively Minds, but I get the sense that kind of between 2012 2015 there was, you know, kind of quite a bit of expansion, and then post 2015 as well. And then obviously we've had COVID lockdowns. It's probably worth mentioning that Uganda, for example, has had the longest school closures in the world. I think they've been shut for the full 2 years. So it's really hindered things, but we are at the moment sort of, really. So in Ghana, for example, middle of last year, we went from 40 to 100 staff. So it's kind of that scale of expansion, as well as like adding new roles to the global team as we need to as well, to make sure that everything that happens in, across the two countries functions more efficiently.
So just to make sure that I've understood it correctly. So basically what happens is that either you or the governments contact one another in order to start these projects. And then once you finish the administration part, you begin by training the parents, giving the parents workshops and the mothers workshops. And then they take on board and start working in the schools or at homes or wherever the community is. And then you just follow up with them, but there's no physical, let's say, there's no physical contact in the sense that are there any teams that, for instance, international teams, for instance, that go every, let's say, annually or biannually or something, that go and check what's going on and train physically? Or is the training online? Or I'm not really sure about that.
Yeah, good question. So in terms of the monitoring, so they're like physically checking up on what's happening. Our aim is that once schools are in, we have like different phases depending on how long they've been running the program. But schools should be getting, for different activities, a certain number of visits per term, and that's conducted by in Ghana, using that example again, by the staff from the Ghanaian, the district education team. So they will go, and we use like a mobile monitoring platform. So we have like monitoring forms that they fill out. They make these unannounced visits to the schools on a day when the play scheme should be running, and they see like, is it running, yes or no? If not, why not? Check the register. What does it look like has been happening? If the play scheme does go ahead, then they look at all the different elements and the different steps of it to make sure that they're happening properly. And then we've got a live dashboard that kind of collates all that data, and you can drill right down to circuit level, which is maybe about 10 schools, to see, have enough visits happened, were the play schemes going ahead when they were visited, how are the schools performing in different areas, that kind of thing. So yeah, that's how we keep a check really on what's actually happening. And it means that Lively Minds staff costs are they're kept way down basically, and I think it would make us quite like an unwieldy organization if we had to have enough staff to conduct all of those visits. So that's the majority of the monitoring visits. As you say, in terms of the training, we deliver top-up trainings twice a term to each district, and those are done in person. So yeah, it's not just that they're kind of cast out once they finish their initial trainings.
Okay, and if we may just cover one more question, since we are working right now with the career services, can you tell us about possible opportunities, even if it's not right now, but like generally, do you recruit people from international backgrounds? Is it exclusively just people from Uganda or Ghana, and so on?
Yeah, sure. So I touched on our kind of structure earlier, which is that we have a global team who can be based anywhere in the world. We've got people at the moment in UK, Kenya, America. Some of those roles we do say need to be based in Ghana or Uganda for the first 12 to 18 months, just so that people can really get settled in and get up to speed, and then can be based anywhere in the world. And we also have the majority of our staff are based in either the Ghana or Uganda offices, and they work mostly just on those programs in those countries. But yeah, I think for roles that are global, and actually important to mention, quite a lot of the global roles choose to be based in Ghana or Uganda as well. So we do hire sort of people of lots of different nationalities, and those roles will be advertised in the usual places like Charity Job and LinkedIn, that kind of thing, and on our website, of course.
Oh, thank you so much, Katie. These were my questions, but if you have any comments or anything that you would like to mention, all good.
No, thank you. It's been really interesting to have a chat, and also it's kind of prompted me to look at the questions that people who aren't so familiar with Lively Minds might have, when you're kind of like working very close up to something, you don't always appreciate what might be interesting or unusual to someone else.
I'm so glad. Honestly, this was a lovely conversation. Again, thank you so much for attending today and giving us your time. And I'm pretty sure whoever would watch this would benefit a lot from Lively Minds, as it's really a very interesting program that truly lives up to the idea of empowerment.